This presentation is maximizing the effectiveness and efficiency of your online marketing dollars, so it's very marketing focused. I know that Caitlin mentioned a little bit about me already, but I'll just run through a bit about myself. I'm from Well.ca and the manager of analytics there. If you haven't heard of Well.ca, we're the largest online retailer in Canada for beauty, health, and baby products. So if you need any of those, come to Well.ca. We have plenty of them. I previously worked at Team Buy. It's a group buying site, Canada's first group buying site in Canada, and as a marketing analyst. And further to my digital work experience, I also had started my own online dry cleaning company within Toronto for condos. So I'll just go into the agenda. So I wanted to start off with just a few online marketing choices to see why we need data and there's so much of it available, and why we need to be able to properly analyze it, and why there is so much available. And the next I wanted to go into, this kind of leads up to the three pillars of getting this great marketing data, because we're spending a lot of money on our marketing, and we need to make sure it's done efficiently and effectively. So I'll go into measuring your marketing tools, choosing the right tools, and collecting and extracting, and then after all of this, trusting the data that you're getting, so that we can make those decisions that are so important with all the money that we spend on marketing. Then I'll go into some conclusions. Just right before that, I just wanted to mention that also too, that whether you're a small, medium, or large business, whether you're doing gigabytes, like up to petabytes, so we've heard terabytes, petabytes. What really matters here is not necessarily just the size of the data. So I think Nigel Powers says it best, that it's not the size, it's how you use that data. So when we're using the data, when we're collecting it, when we're extracting it, when we're analyzing it, when we're discussing that data, that is so important. It's not necessarily just how much data you have, because you're going to have a lot of it no matter what these days. So just wanted to go through all the different choices that we have in marketing. Nowadays, obviously we would probably recognize a few of these logos. There's Google, we do AdWords or display ads, Facebook, also providing display ads recently, also just purchased Atlas, so they want to even get more into being able to allow you to measure your advertising dollars better. There's affiliates. We can go to, some of you may still do group buying, email. You can go straight to organic and use SEO. The fact is that there are so many choices here, and we're spending all of our time and our money on them. And so we need to measure them effectively. And beyond just those few choices, there are choices within those choices. We might say that certain affiliate networks are different than others, and we want to measure how our marketing dollars and our efforts are doing within, not just between Facebook and Google, but between Bing and Google, and how those customers are. So the first pillar is measuring effectively. And I think that even though maybe you've already started to collect data, you have data, it's important to make sure that you have key performance indicators that you can make actionable insights on, and that you have them defined early on. These KPIs they may be ad specific, such as one per click or many per click conversions, and and we can only use those really for AdWords or if you're doing a promotion for Facebook and you want to find out you want to get as many likes as possible, or you can't really measure this with retweets, but there's still data and they're still important. But what also is very important is our comparable KPIs. So ones we can actually use to measure across platforms. So that we can take the cost per acquisition, let's say, and the customer lifetime value, and say that how much is a customer costing us in Google compared to Facebook, and how much are we actually, and how much are they bringing us in revenue? So if we're making $5, if it costs $5 for a Facebook customer and $10 in Google AdWords, well, that's great, but we need to know how much it's actually how much revenue they're going to bring in, and if Google's going to bring us $100 in their lifetime compared to the $10 that Facebook is, then obviously we want to know that. We want to be able to say, well, obviously we'll put more of our efforts into Google than Facebook. One of the problems I often see as an analyst is that a lot of managers or C-level decision makers are getting influx of all this data, and they want to look at it all. But the problem is that there's so much of it. And oftentimes I'll create a dashboard for someone or information, and they'll come back to me, ask me for very specific things, and they'll come back to me a month later saying, well, what was this? What is this? I can't even remember what it is. So it's very important to keep this information actionable and something that rather than just inundating yourself with all this information, just using it, just making sure that you have what you really need to make insights, because also your time is money and all of that. So the second level here is choosing the right tools. We can see out here there's many people offering different great companies offering different types of tools. There's so many more out there and so much choice with that. One of the big ones is web analytics, which is visitor based. It's clicks, it's tracking. We can track our customers. We can track how much revenue they're bringing in, but only based on visitors. This Google Analytics is free, and the reason for that is because they want to push your AdWords for you, AdWords advertising. So there are other levels you can take, like Omniture and stuff like that. But if you want to start off with some basic one, Google Analytics is perfect, and it is standard amongst the industry because so many people are using it. One of the main things here is the UTM tracking, and here you can actually track where your customers are coming from. The source, medium campaigns. For example, here we could have Google, cost per click, and our campaign could be selling Coca-Cola online for our store. But we want to compare this across to Bing and say, well, the same source, just Bing, and cost per click, and then we would see exactly how the Coca-Cola campaign was doing across these areas. So Web Analytics will provide you with all this information. It will also provide you with some social networking, but if you want to go beyond that, you can find other platforms such as Radeon 6, where you can quantify your sentiment. How if this is very important to you, and you want to make sure that people are having a great reaction, and what kind of clout these people have, you'll want to invest more heavily into a system like something like Radeon 6. The sentiment indicators here are great. They can give you information that's saying whether people are enjoying your products or have great things to say about you, but they're only really about 80% maybe correct, if that. So we have to take them with a grain of salt. One of probably the best places to get information is your structured and unstructured databases, and we obviously heard Dr. Barta speaking quite heavily about these. They're very important because this is where your customer-centric information is. This is where your customers come to your site, they sign in, and they make a purchase. What they purchase, whether they're signed into your email, whether they're subscribed. This is where we can tie back everything to our customers. There's plenty of information that's coming out of our websites with structured databases. When you get into unstructured databases, you're obviously getting into much larger amounts of data, but for the starting point, there's probably most of your information will come from the databases that are directly tied to your website. So what we want to do is we probably want to take all this information and put it together and put it in one place. I've been in the scenario in which I've both done in-house data warehousing and third-party data warehousing. They both have their complications. They both can be very difficult to do. There are always problems. Obviously, security is a problem with sending it outside. But if you don't have the resources necessarily to bring in, have all your IT developers working on a BI system, then you'll probably want to go to a third-party system. There are, again, so many different opportunities for that. A few experiences that I had, RJ Metrics was one when they were able to, input this data into the system very efficiently. I actually spent probably months before that working with another company, and it was actually already been in the system working. People had already been working before that to try to insert the data into all of our database and our Google Analytics and everything into one area. And when we saw the final product, we didn't know what they had actually shown us. So because third parties don't understand your data, and they don't understand your business model necessarily. You understand your business model, and you understand your data the best, more than anybody else can. The best solution is to have somebody internally do it. But again, you take a lot more resources, internal resources, in which you could be using for other areas, and it's very time-consuming. You will also probably have to continually redefine as your website changes, as your business changes, your KPIs and analytics and definitions within databases. Another one, which RJ Metrics and these other ones, they actually allow you to create dashboards, and they're more flexible in that manner. But some, like Castora, provide you with a set amount of information. They'll provide you only with their data. You won't be able to create your own dashboards, but they'll be able to do something like creating predictive customer lifetime values. They'll be able to tell you when your customers need to be emailed, and because they have a high chance of not coming back. It's very valuable information. So you might not just want to stick with one system in which you have dashboards and your information is you're just looking at very vanity metrics. You might want another system there that's telling you exactly what you should do. And not only that, but sending the emails with you. So now that we've decided on what we know, how we're going to measure, and we know what we're going to use as analytics platforms, it's very important to, when we're collecting, when we're extracting our data, to trust it. And what I mean by this is that when we're collecting our data, everything, you should be collecting absolutely everything, anything that you can think of, and never deleting any of it. I can't count the times, how many times I've had to go into looking for data, because I have an ad hoc question from somebody who really wants to know, we need to make a key decision, but that data isn't there. And then we'll start recording it. And only then, in a few months' time, can we actually have statistically significant information to actually make come back to that question and answer it. And by that time, who knows what could have happened? We might not even care anymore. So this is of the utmost importance, and also recording the history of everything. If a customer comes into your site and says, and they have maybe a subscription to a product or a subscription to an email, they might leave, and we'll obviously know that there's churn. But we want to know when they come back, what were those subscriptions. We want to understand why they're leaving and why they're not subscribing to those products. So it's very important to keep the history of that, not just collecting it and knowing when it's there. So after that, we also want to extract our information. The biggest probably part here, and the biggest problem I've seen, as actually Caitlin mentioned with communication and liaisoning between different groups or different departments, is the communication between these departments. Finance, marketing, and IT are three very common ones that have to liaison and usually have different definitions for things. I've had the point where somebody says, okay, I need to know how many customers we have, or we need to make customer calculations. Well, finance will tell me it's one definition, and they'll tell me, well, it's when a customer made a purchase. It's pretty obvious. And then somebody from marketing will say, well, hold on, it's actually when somebody's a customer, they made a purchase, but they're also subscribed to our email. And then I'll go over to IT, and they'll say, well, actually, it's when somebody signs up and creates a customer account, but they may not have purchased anything. So you'll have three different definitions from three different departments, and they're on completely different areas. So if we want to calculate our customer lifetime value, well, that's three different ways of calculating it. So it's really important that every single person there knows, in each department, has the same definition for something. And I think that this is, when we want to, my next point is understanding the structure and relationship within the database. This is very important from, obviously the IT is going to know this, but teaching a little bit and having finance and marketing understand this a bit too, as it becomes more interrelated into our marketing decisions and our financial decisions, all our business decisions. It's good that they have an understanding. I've given presentations to these departments at my companies to say, well, this is how it's structured, and it answers so many more questions for them, and then they can, okay, that's why my data is like that. That's why Google Analytics doesn't match the database or our BI system. That's why, because they're not going to, because there are different ways of doing it. And it's the same way for understanding the business model. The IT side should also understand the business model. This is highly important because they're pulling out, extracting data for you, and they should understand a little bit as to why finance and marketing or other departments need information like this, need information the way it is, because they're going to make decisions based on how it best fits the website and their IT model without necessarily taking into the considerations of the other departments. But when they understand it and everybody's on the same level, you can solve so many other problems. I mean, nobody wants to make a decision on a piece of information that is completely wrong or it's not what they thought it was. So this also gets to querying correctly. When we're pulling out our information from our database, this information can change over time. Our companies are changing, our business demographics, everything is changing. And so we have to keep going back to these queries and making sure that they're up to date. Constantly, we'll have even simple things like revenue might change over time, just because of the way the database changes, because the site is interacting differently, and we're updating it to make sure that our customers can come to our site and purchase better. But then we had to create a whole new level of architecture within the database. So after all this is put together, then we can start to trust our data. When we know that it's extracted properly, we know what we're looking for, we know that the tools we're using are the right tools. But we still, like I said, we need to make sure that we're calculating different ways that we can compare it with Google Analytics. It's obviously going to be different, or with any visitor tracking system, web analytics system, that's going to be different from the data that you acquire inside your database. Because, for instance, when somebody returns a piece of a product, that's not going to be captured within your web analytics. It's going to be captured outside by your customer service team. So they're not going to match. But as long as they're close and they're not too far off, it's you should be in the right ballpark. But also our checks and our balances. And what I mean by that is not just having different analytic systems, but another check and balance is making sure that everybody's looking at the data. People who are analysts, who aren't analysts, I have people coming up asking me questions and saying, "Why is this like this? This is impossible. There's no way that these customers could have purchased these products together." And I will, because I'm extracting data that's millions of rows, millions of columns, millions of data sets. It's actually also, I have to go in and prove it to them and go find that specific orders and say, look, here it is. This is why when we're extracting data, it's correct. And afterwards, they're feeling much better about the information. And it works the same way, other way around. That I might be wrong less often, but it happens. But it's very important to have these checks and balances, because data is so much more complicated, and having it in all these different places and coming from different areas and into your data warehouse can cause this kind of confusion. But if we're all on the same page and we can start to trust our data and make those right decisions. So this kind of comes to my conclusion. I wanted to just kind of go back and look at all these different things, saying, we need to, these four things here, measuring effectively. So, like I said, making sure that we know we have the right KPIs, making sure that, we know that our information is correct, the right combination of tools, the ones that we want. Maybe we don't care about social networking, but maybe we do. But if we want to invest in that, we need to get information from different sources. Respecting your data. So that comes to that point of never deleting, keeping everything, making sure that you're extracting it correctly. You really have to respect it. It's very complicated sometimes, and you'll confuse yourself with it. But if you take the time to make sure that everything that's coming out is correct, and that's never deleted, you'll be able to answer your questions right away rather than waiting a few months. Probably the most importantly is having the right people looking at it. Having people who are interested in all different departments. Sure, they're focused on their area, they have their job, but the fact that they know, if they have an interest in understanding why finance or marketing wants it this way, have an interest in understanding why IT has to do this. That's so important, because communication between everybody in your company who's making decisions off this data will save you so much time and money. So when we're making those decisions on our marketing, when we're putting in millions of dollars into our Google AdWords campaigns, into our into our group buying, into everything, we need to make sure that we have actionable marketing analytics with our big data, and this will solve that problem for you. So thank you very much for taking the time to hear my presentation. Let's open up to questions.